family name once so well regarded is now barely whispered aloud by decent folk.
And welcome back to more Darkest Dungeon. This is episode 43, week 114, getting underway. So let's get the town event out of the way. Kind of an odd one of those random ones. This is called Eat the Rich. Most curious of all, however, is the absence of any evidence in the crypt itself. Nevertheless, the chest was found open, its contents conspicuously missing. Idle grave robbers gain 1 resolve level. Now, more important, you'll notice on the right here, I'm scrolling through the caretaker goals. Look at all these, Devatron. Checkbox after checkbox. We have been incredibly thorough. And alas, the last 4 goals remain. Complete your first, second, third, and final assault on the Darkest Dungeon. And look down here, even in roster goals, these are even complete. I mean, we have absolutely kicked this game's ass, Devatron. The Darkest Devatron estate is ours. So we don't need to talk a lot about the town event. Like I said, it's one of the random, kind of rare ones that can occur. There is a town event like this for each class where if you leave, whichever class it is in the hamlet for that week, they'll just gain a level. And like a lot of these random ones, that would be cool early on when you're trying to level up, although it may work against you if you're trying to save a certain character to do a certain boss, and you don't want that character to get any XP and, get too high a level to enter the dungeon you need him or her to enter. So at any rate, it's just not that interesting. It's random and it popped up for us this week. No big deal. What is interesting for us this week, Devatron, is that we're here, buddy. We have made it. Talk about a long road. We've done everything. And all we have to do is get to this Darkest Dungeon. Okay, so let's talk about this Darkest Dungeon. It's an area like any other, I suppose. You click on it, you build your roster, you go in. There are 4 quests associated with it, and you need to do all of them in order to complete the game. Now, what's really interesting is the fact that you don't actually have to unlock the Darkest Dungeon. I'm not sure if it's available right away when you start the game, but I know that within a very short amount of time you can go there. In other words, you don't need to do every boss and every dungeon like we've done to unlock it. Again, the reason we've done that is because I want to show you the whole game and uncover all the backstory, etc., etc. But yeah, you can go here pretty much whenever you want. I think I've seen people on speed runs put a party together and do these in like week 16 or something crazy like that. So the Darkest Dungeon is there, and you can pretty much do it whenever you want. Now, as for the challenge ranking, if you will, I'm not sure the term for that, but you know how we had the apprentice level of each dungeon, and then the veteran, and then the champion. Well, for the Darkest Dungeon, it's considered the Darkest Dungeon level. And we saw this once before when we did the V-Wolf encounter. And what that means is if you choose to retreat and leave the dungeon, then one of your existing party members will be killed. It'll be chosen at random. The idea is that one of them needs to stay behind to hold off the monsters while the other ones escape. So it's bad. You really don't want to have to retreat from a Darkest Dungeon. Now, another interesting dynamic to these Darkest Dungeons is that once a hero goes in and completes a mission in here, they will not return to the darkest dungeon ever again. Okay, so the 4 heroes that we pick for this first dungeon, We Are the Flame quest, we need to make sure that we don't ever want to use them in any of the other quests in here. Okay, and this again goes to the master plan and the game within the game and the puzzle and all that, because you know how you build your roster, etc. You don't just need X, Y, and Z type of heroes in your roster for this composition, for this boss. You also need to be planning the whole way a full 16 heroes, 4 for each of these dungeons, who you're going to use for which quest. Now, what happens to each hero when they return from a successful mission in here, they're still available in your roster. They'll have a special icon denoting that they've been to the darkest dungeon, but they won't take up a roster spot anymore. Okay, as far as your maximum capacity goes, let's say we complete this quest and these 4 heroes come back. Well, I'll have 4 more roster slots available. At the same time, those 4 who did this quest, they'll still be available for grouping in other quests and other dungeons. They just will not return to the darkest dungeon. The idea being that it was just too stressful and scary and they can't take it. Alright, so we're just about ready to start We Are the Flame. As for provisioning, you need a lot of everything, except you don't need shovels because there are no blockages, and you also don't need keys because there are no locked chests. Alright, so we're ready to go. Sit back and enjoy our first assault into the darkest dungeon.
Once again, the stars are right, and the manor sits at the very epicenter of cosmic unrest. Cultists rally to their twisted idols, and great gongs sound in anticipation of the coming sacrifices. Far below, life-laden shadows pulse to the unrelenting rhythm of a beating heart.
Oh yeah, big time, Devatron, here we go.
The blood of the fallen flows ever downward along these titan spires. The creature fattens itself on your failures.
So you'll notice that the map is just like the Crimson Court dungeons. It only reveals itself one hallway at a time.
A time to perform beyond one's limits. Continue the onslaught. Destroy them all.
Alright, so first fight down. I'll talk more about those cultist enemies in a sec.
The light, the promise of safety. Impressive. As the fiend falls, a faint hope blossoms. formation is broken. Maintain the offensive. A decisive pummeling. Press this advantage. Give them no quarter. Confidence surges as the enemy crumbles. Remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer. As the light gains purchase, spirits are lifted, and purpose is made clear. Unnerved, unbalanced. The slow death, unforeseen, unforgiving. Be wary. Triumphant pride precipitates a dizzying fall. The match is struck. A blazing star is born. In Radiance, may we find victory.
Alright, so a few fights down, we're getting underway. As you can see, the enemies are pretty tough in here. The only exception is those cultists. They don't attack you. They'll heal themselves or others, or they can guard, but they don't attack.
About to break. A singular strike. Compassion is a rarity in the fevered pitch of battle. passion is a rarity in the fevered pitch of battle. Precision and power. Ghoulish horrors, brought low and driven into the mud.
So because those rapturous cultists won't attack you, and again, those are the guys with their hands in the air, not the witches, the priests, the brawlers, but the little cultists. What you can do is just save them till the end, don't kill them, and then use the extra rounds to heal up and get stress healed.
The ground quakes. A momentary abatement. Great is the weapon that cuts on its own. These nightmarish creatures can be felled. They can be beaten.
So there you saw, I did kill one immediately because it was guarding one of the more dangerous enemies, but then I saved the other one for the end, and once we were good and healed, I just finished him off then. So as for the quest and our progress in here, you can see in the upper left, our goal is to kill one shuffling horror. So in the meantime, we're searching for that.
Masterfully executed. Well struck. Powerful blow. blow. Soothed. Sedated. As victories mount, so too will resistance.
All right, really tough fight there. No cultists to heal up on or anything. And as you can see, the enemies in here, they don't just do a lot of damage, they do a lot of stress damage. Stress is probably the biggest killer in these darkest dungeons.
The blood quickens. Mortality clarified in a single strike. This expedition at least promises success. A spark without kindling is a goal without hope.
So as for the layout of these darkest dungeon maps, they're the same every time. The bosses and the goals are in the same rooms every time. Even the hallway fights are the same every time. So I already have this all mapped out and I know where everything is, and because of that I know that it's time to camp right now. Now, one other interesting dynamic to these darkest dungeons is that there are no nighttime ambushes. So you can use all your respite points on, good buffs and other useful things. You don't have to waste, 4 of your points preventing a nighttime ambush. Okay, as for our camping buffs, we increased the dodge and speed of our highwayman as well as his damage and accuracy with melee weapons. We've increased the maximum hit points and protection of our shield breaker, as well as her accuracy and crit. And we also increased her blight resistance, as well as her chance to cause a blight attack.
The way is lit. The path is clear. We require only the strength to follow it. Death by inches. A trifling victory, but a victory nonetheless.
Okay, so we've made it to the boss. The shuffling horror will be just through this next door. And as you can probably guess from its name, it's going to shuffle the party around a bit. So what we're doing here is equipping skills so that if, say, our Jester or our Vestal end up in an awkward rank, like rank 1 or 2, they'll still have something they can do. They won't just have to pass or take a move for their turn. They'll be able to do something, even if it's a weird little attack, like here I'm equipping the Vestal's mace attack, you know what I mean? So that's kind of not super necessary to this fight, but it does definitely make things easier when your party gets shuffled, and it will get shuffled.
Waits for the slightest lapse in concentration. A brilliant confluence of skill and purpose. Ringing ears, blurred vision. The end approaches. greater the glory. Obliterated. Success so clearly in view. Or is it merely a trick of the light?
Oh, yeah. Big time. Another big finale from a big jester. And also a really big riposte to finish off the shuffling horror out of our highwayman. Awesome, awesome run. I don't know that I've ever done it that handily. It's actually a really hard quest. The group just completely kicked ass. All right, we were rewarded with 3 Talismans of the Flame. I'll talk more about them in next episode because we're going to use them in the next dungeon. All right, as for quirks, Hot to Trot replacing Warren's Tactician, that's awesome. Fragile on our Jester is not that great. Wheeled Explorer replacing Warrior of Light is terrible. And Hysterical Blindness, that needs to go. The Darkest Dungeon, we are the Flame. First assault on the Darkest Dungeon down. Oh yeah, we'll see you in the next episode.